very esteemed quarterback, one of the best to come out of Burlington, honestly. I feel like I can say that. And just to start everything off, I wanted to talk to you about what your recruiting process was like, because I know back in the day, I think you were the number 1 or number 2 recruit in the country, I believe. So tell me about how the recruiting process first started for you.
Originally, it was interesting for sure. Originally I was looking at heading down south just to play across the border. And then once I got to that, end of grade 11, 12 area, I decided to, make this just stay up here and play Canadian ball.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, a bunch of schools across Ontario and then across Canada. Not really any interest down south. It's tough for a Canadian kid to kind of break that barrier, but
Sure.
Especially being up here. But yeah, it was good. It was interesting for sure. It's definitely a learning experience. When you have guys calling your house and you have people showing up at practice and all that kind of stuff, right? So that was interesting for sure, and it's definitely something that it opens your eyes to the football world of recruiting and that kind of thing. And being a coach at Laurier and Western last year, you really see it, and it starts to make sense. So it's really it's definitely interesting. It's definitely something that you look back on and you kind of see as an experience and something that helps build you as a person for sure.
Yeah, I get you. And during that whole process, did you enjoy the recruiting process, or was it just kind of like these guys are constantly calling me 24/7, like leave me the hell alone?
Yeah, it was different. It was like sometimes it was good and sometimes it wasn't, because some schools would call you maybe that you're not interested in as much, and I'm sure a lot of guys now that are getting actively recruited now, they'll tell you that schools that you're definitely not interested in, they'll still call you in that until you finally say, I've narrowed it down to these schools or whatnot. And then they may call you late at night, and they may not know like a young recruiter or someone like that. They may not know the time frame. But I think when you're getting recruited as a high school kid, it's pretty special. You feel kind of like you're gifted in some way, right? So that's definitely it was cool that way. And, looking back on it, I think it was pretty killer, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process for sure. And Matt Jackson, I'm sure you can really speak to that too, right?
Oh yeah, recruiting's borderline stalking. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, even myself, I'm trying to do some stuff with the Burlington Stampeders, and I went over to a camp today, and you feel really weird because it's like, yeah, you have no other ties to the camp here at all. You're just here to watch kids who are at least 10 years younger than you play football. I feel pretty weird about this. I can only imagine how everybody else feels.
Exactly. It's something too with the whole recruiting process. It's like, a lot of times kids they're either nervous to get recruited as well, or they'll put on a show.
Yeah.
So if a kid sees you there, and maybe he wants to play stamp or play at the next level, whatever it is, and he sees a coach staring at him with a clipboard or all the gear on, that kind of thing, the kid might be deer in the headlights, So,
yeah.
But it's definitely weird when you get whole coaching staff out and stuff like that. It's kind of it's definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a couple of times where it was like, I appreciate the fact that you want me here, but I don't need to see the DB coach. I don't think I'm ever going to talk to him ever in my career. So you can just keep him at home, just bring me the O-line coach, maybe the head coach, and that's about it.
Well, that's just it, right? That's just it.
I remember actually, it's funny, when I was going to Laurier, I was trying to be a D lineman, right? And I remember they sat me down with one of the O-line coaches. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? What are you guys trying to pull?
Yeah, right away they're like, either they don't got their position right, or they just right away it's like, well, they're switching me.
Yeah, this is your plan, buddy. Too bad.
And so obviously you talk about getting recruited, going all over the place. What was it that finally made you set on Western?
The big day came down to Mac and Western, and both, it was, I had the whiteboard out, and I had essentially a T-chart with positives and negatives. That's really what it came down to. And it just sold me as my whole family went to Western. Mm-hmm. And it was just, both had great tradition, both had great coaching staffs, both had a similar scenario as far as the quarterback who's there currently. There's Quinlan at Mac, and then there's Donnie Marshall at Western there. But it kind of came down to my whole family was at Western, and my sister was currently there.
Oh, wow.
And I was really close, I still am really close with her too, so that was kind of a selling, feature, just to go there and know I have someone that I can kind of call and just go and see her and that kind of thing, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you made a pretty good choice. You guys were, what, 2-time Yates Cup champions when you were there?
We only won one when I was there. We were in another one when I was conked out. But
That's right. That's right.
Lost to Guelph, which is
Yeah.
tough pill to swallow, definitely.
Yeah. But still, it was. You've had unbelievable success there. You've been an OUA MVP, second team All Canadian. I think you should have been a first team, but that's just me.
Me too, man.
Yeah. So, but the other thing is, and like you just kind of mentioned there, was you had some trouble with injuries. Now, and I'm not saying any kind of negativity towards Western by any means, but do you feel that like the way that they would call plays with you doing like quarterback powers or things like that, do you think that attributed to you getting hit and injured, or do you think it was just like luck of the draw?
Well, I think in a way, yes and no. I think a lot of our plays were quarterback counters and that kind of thing, but that was also when the read option game was almost just introduced.
Right.
Oregon was doing it down south with Auburn, that kind of thing, and we were implementing it up here with like the midline option, that kind of stuff. But it was almost uncertain at that point. You don't really, but you don't know too much. Like you see Kaepernick when he was playing in the NFL or whatever, and like all guys like that. So, kind of, and then there was times, when you'd look at the play call and you'd be like, oh man, like my body's sore right now. I'm not looking to take a whack, but they did a good job though there at when I came back from my last year, just for my senior year, and we didn't really run the ball at all as far as quarterback called run. It was pretty much it was myself just taking the ball just tucking the ball down and getting yards.
Mm-hmm.
So the last concussion was actually I was in the pocket and I took one right into the chin.
Right.
And that's to me, that's just, that wasn't a dirty hit at all. That's football, man. Like, I mean, if I didn't like that, I could be playing flag. Right?
Yeah, I get you.
It's football, and it happens a lot too. So yes and no. Play calling, yeah, maybe in my third year, a little more pass oriented or a quick game, that kind of thing. But but like I said, it's football. It's play calling. The read option was just getting kind of started with Tebow in the NFL and just finishing up and that kind of thing, right? So
yeah, and Tebow's your boy, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Florida Gator fan, right? So I mean, I used to want to be him all the time. I try to eat spinach shakes and 4 protein shakes a night, but that didn't really pan out. It didn't really end up being 275 or whatever.
You kind of look like him, man.
just in the face. But yeah, that's certainly something to, and you have to look at it from a Western kind of standpoint. For sure, you have a quarterback who has the ability to take off and run. Like there was a bunch of times where I can distinctly remember when you played against us, where you would take off and run, and it wasn't a design play by any means, but you would get the first down, you get a touchdown, you do all these things with your legs. So it makes sense to try to turn that into a positive, turn that into a design play. But it's just kind of the luck of the draw, I guess, and the ways you can get hit and those kind of things. But moving on past that, so you finished up your career at Western, moving on in the world, and then, if I'm not mistaken, Laurier is the one who calls you up and says, "Hey, we need a quarterback coach." Is that correct?
Yeah, so we linked up, Laurier and I, and I knew Faulds.
Yeah,
Faulds there from when I coming out of high school playing Team World. He's my quarterback coach, Team Canada, that kind of thing. So I had a good relationship with him, and so he kind of got my foot in the door, I guess. So I really appreciate him kind of getting me to that next step into coaching. Mm-hmm. It definitely learned a lot, especially being there, because half the guys when I was there, I played against half the guys. The guy that ended my career was still playing. So
that's awkward.
so it was definitely like a learning curve, right? But at the end of the day, even being there, I tell everyone this: no matter what school you're at or what football's still football. Yeah. So as soon as you go on the field, you know what I mean. You pass the white lines or whatever. It's football. I mean, plays are still called. Every offense runs pretty much the same thing in the OUA, or very similar. It's just terminology and whatnot. So it's still football, and I just appreciate him giving me the chance to kind of get my foot in the door for sure.
Perfect. Well, Will, so I got a question for you. Actually, I've looked into your camp a little. It looks like you're trying to develop Canadian quarterbacks. I'm a huge fan of we'll talk about Laird and only have you for a limited number of time here, but I just kind of want to get into that camp a little bit and kind of want to learn how you're trying to push the development of Canadian quarterbacks in Canada.
Yeah, so what we're doing now is it started off. I actually started in my third year at Western. I was doing private quarterback coaching with local London quarterbacks. And when I was doing that, it was the more and more I did it, the more I've always been passionate about the mechanics and throwing the football like that. And so I started working with the kids, and it's just something that was a passion of mine. And then slowly started building its way up. My fourth year, I went down and spent time with Tom House, who is Tom Brady and Drew Brees' quarterback coach.
That's crazy.
And so it was at USC, Southern California, and it was the things I learned there just opened my eyes up. It shows you how behind we are up here as far from the quarterback perspective, the development standpoint. Like, down there, these guys it's the full holistic approach. They got nutrition, arm care, all this. They eat, sleep, and breathe football and playing football. These guys their minds are always clear. They're ready to just get up, take care of their shoulder and throw the ball. And that's the big thing. In all honesty, like growing up, going to the camps and everything, that kind of triggered it. But what solidified me wanting to do this is that my fourth year, seeing all the way the pros do it is something that's like, no one has, or not many people have the opportunity to do that. So, so from there, that led me into the Laurier for the year, and then Western last year, back as a quarterback who was there. And then it slowly built its way up. Private training, just doing the odd camp, and there's been more buzz, social media, that kind of thing. And then slowly it just starts building its way up. And then eventually you look and you're like, wow, we're working with 50 guys, or, that kind of thing. And then about probably a couple months ago, I reached out to Josh Vanderweerd, who I'm sure you guys know too.
Yeah, we know of him. Yeah,
yeah. The Mac guy, and we played at Nelson in the end, and and he's a good receivers coach too at Nelson. I'm like, man, we can, the stuff that we want to do is just all right in front of us. So me and him had actually our first quarterback receiver camp this past weekend. There was about 40 kids there, which is pretty solid, man. But that is kind of the way we're going. We want to be like a Ontario kind of passing academy, have private quarterback training, private receiver training, small group camps, and go that way, and make it more of a, bring that American style coaching into Canada from the grassroots level up. So that's kind of the walk through every step right there.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you've got a whole bunch of camps that are scheduled to come up. So when's the next camp, and where is it?
Right now, so we have our next quarterback camp. It's called our Aerial Assault Camp. It's our fourth year running it. It's March 24th to April 28th.
Beautiful.
It's in Burlington, 6 weeks. Just every Sunday, there's 3 groups, 11 to 1, 1 to 3, and 3 to 5 p.m. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we have on April 6th in Guelph, we have a quarterback receiver camp, which is pretty killer. And then it's just pretty much every month there's something kind of happening there. So it's all online at finchperformance.ca. So it's hard to if you go on, there's all the info is there. So
beautiful, and that's finchperformance.ca, right?
I'll make sure I post that on the gram for you.
Oh yeah, we'll be sure to plug that for you for sure. But one more quick question, just before you have to leave here. You're going through all of this work with quarterbacks and with receivers, and I'm sure at some point you got to have DBs in there, so you've got some proper training and things. At some point, is the idea of being a coach, either offense coordinator, head coach, is that somewhere down the line for you?
It's funny. I think about that all the time. Whether I want to stay as be a coach in Canada, like at a university or something like that. And I don't really know. Like believe it or not, I'm actually doing my police training right now to do.
That's awesome.
To do policing. So ideally, in a perfect world, I'd get on somewhere and do my shifts there, and then just do my private coaching and my camps, because that's something I love. I don't have to have any big ties in with anywhere, so there's no tension. It's just I'm just there, and I can help grow minor to high school to OUA to NCAA level talent, and maybe eventually the pros. So I mean, that's where I'd want to be, but you never know. Things change all the time, and opportunities come up and then that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Will, I really wish you luck on everything. I hear the camps are going well. I hope they continue to get even better. That was Will Finch, everybody. And once again, that's finchperformance.ca. And is there an Instagram or a Twitter account as well?
Yeah, but it's all Finch Performance. If you go on Facebook, Instagram, we just activated our Twitter, so we're trying to get the whole thing linked up and lots of updates and that kind of thing. So
beautiful. We will make sure to link everything in our social media pages as well. Will, just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Will.
That was Will Finch, everybody. He's a hell of a guy.
Great thing he's doing too. Honestly, like I'm so for the development of Canadian quarterbacks. I actually just had a conversation with a buddy on Friday. This guy is not a football fan at all, doesn't like sports or anything, but I was kind of explaining to him, imagine if someone in your class he goes to Guelph, this guy, imagine like someone in your Guelph class who you worked on a group project with was playing in the CFL at quarterback, the most prestige position. Would you not watch?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't like football, but if I knew the guy, yeah, I would watch. So I love that he's doing this.
Yeah, it's a credible thing, especially for Canadian quarterbacks, because in the CFL, that's the one position that we don't have consistently. We've had one guy here or there kind of thing, and if he hadn't have gotten injured, I think he could have put us finally on the map. For those of you who don't know, when Will Finch was coming out of high school, he was going to be like the greatest Canadian quarterback ever. He went to Western, he was putting up crazy numbers and things, and then the injuries kind of came along. But if he doesn't get injured, I think he goes down as one of the greatest Canadian quarterbacks ever.
100%. I remember he was getting recruited to Western, still had Tyler Varga at the time, who ended up actually playing on the Indianapolis Colts. So when he's got recruited there, I think Varga was still there for a bit, then Varga ended up going to Yale. Imagine defensive coordinators at that point. They were probably like, what are we going to do? They were probably running to their OCs going, hey guys, look, you're going to have to score like 50 points.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Like, Western loses, Varga, and then Finch has some injuries and things like that, and they're still doing that because then next up is Chris Merchant, or there's Justin Sanvito, and there's all of these unbelievable offensive talents that are coming out of Western that it's like, my gosh. Like, as a coach, you're like, okay, obviously we're hoping that Will Finch has a great recovery, but we don't have to deal with him. This is great. Oh, no, now this other kid just put up 700 yards of offense against us. This is great. You know what I mean? So it's like the monster there of Western just keeps rolling with all of these guys. It's crazy. But back into some more OUA coaching news. We're going to focus a little bit on the Guelph Griffins as of right now. Guelph just recently got a new head coach in Ryan Sheehan. Sheehan was the offensive assistant at Queens when they won the Vanier Cup in 2009. He actually spent some time in the Hamilton Tiger Cats as well, and then was, for the past 4 years, the offensive coordinator at Calgary before coming here to Guelph. So he's certainly got a long, prestigious kind of coaching record with him. He's pumped out 2 Crichton winners at Calgary with Sinagra and Buckley, who have both come out of Calgary. So he's very, very worldly, I think, and he's got a great offensive mind. And even more impressive is that he brought on Dennis McPhee as the defensive coordinator. Now, Matty, you've got some experience with Dennis, right?
Yeah, actually, Dennis recruited me. Actually came to my house when I was a lot younger, trying to get me to go to Western. He was the D-line coach over there, and unfortunately, I had to tell him no. It was one of the hardest no's I've ever had to do in my life, but my heart was with McMaster at the time, so I had to turn him down.
Yeah. And so can you talk a little bit about, Dennis and how he talked, or at least how his coaching styles were, anything like that?
Honestly, he was a very passionate guy. I mean, I never really saw his coaching style straight because, again, I went to Mac over him, but he was a really passionate guy. I find he honestly reminded me of like a gym teacher. You know what I mean? Like, just was passionate, could connect with the kids, like found a way to like push you a little bit. Well, didn't push me to Western, but he found a way. found a way to push me. So I thought he was a great guy. I think he was the Waterloo head coach before that, and then he came to Western. Then he only ended up staying at Western for a year, and then he went to the Tie Cats, and then he coached there. So I was actually, it kind of worked out. I don't know what would have happened if I went there and he was only there for a year. So maybe my gut was just telling me, you should go to Mac.
Yeah, that's the one thing that's, really fortunate about us for sure, is the consistency that we had at the coaching positions. Because so many other people, like Waterloo's coaches, obviously all gone. Guelph's coaches have changed a few times now. And there's anytime that you can have a playing career, you want to be as consistent as you possibly can, because you're working on the same technique techniques and the same kind of offense or defense, whatever you're doing. And so the more years you have at that, the better and better you get versus like even, I guess, I'm speaking strictly from an offensive standpoint at McMaster because defensive guys, when you came in, you had like 3 different defensive coordinators?
Well, 2 really, because we had Knox my first year, and then we had Ibo, and then we had Knox again. So it was just all over the place. It was like, when I was at Mac, I never had the same playbook twice.
Wow.
Yeah, my first year I had Knox, I was on defense. Second year I had Iben, I was on defense. And I got moved over to offense.
Yeah.
I was like, man, give me a break.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I speaking strictly from an offensive standpoint, I completely forgot about our defensive brethren. But yeah, that's
thanks,
crazy.
man.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of tweets at me from some of our former players, and they're going to be pretty pissed off. But that's the way she goes, as Sean Smith would say.
Yeah, good old Sean.
But what would you say, just strictly from a player point, was the biggest differences between Knox and Kevin Iben's defense?
The X's and O's, hands down. Honestly, like Knox, just the stuff he ran was way more complicated. I found Iben was more of he was more of a motivator. He was more of a positional coach, in my opinion. Like he was a great linebacker in the CFL. Mm-hmm. I felt like if he was a linebacker coach, he would have been a lot better. I don't think he really knew the whole picture as well. He knew just one position, whereas I felt like Knox knew the whole picture and just knew everything inside and out. And plus, to Iben too, that was his first year coaching. Yeah. So there was honestly a huge disparity between the coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also look at, how they played and the positions that they played. Obviously, he was a linebacker himself. He knew the linebacker position better than anything versus Knox, who was a safety who most of the time you need to know what everybody's doing in front of you, certainly from a coverage standpoint, and then learning the front seven and how guys are blitzing or twists and things like that, I think is easier than trying to figure out a brand new like coverage scheme and things like that. At least that's what it seems like to me. You could probably speak better to that.
Yeah, I also felt Iben really just relied on athleticism.
Yeah.
Like he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna let these guys go play. Whereas Knox was like, no, we're gonna do things this way. We're gonna make sure we're gap sound. Everyone's the right place, the right time. So I remember learning Iben's defense was definitely a lot less stressful than learning Knox's defense, let me tell you. And speaking of Knox, he actually just took a coaching job at Alberta.
Yeah. So Knox, who we were talking about on the last show, who was fired from McMaster, has now just received a new defensive coordinator position at the University of Alberta, the Golden Bears.
Yep.
So he's going to be out west. It was only a matter of time before he picked up another position. Whatever you have to say about his play style or how he, speak to people, he is an unbelievable coach, and Alberta will now be a contender just because he is there for sure.
I 100% agree, and I'm really glad Alberta is an academic school because they're going to need to have some smart football players in order to learn his defense, let me tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. But he will naturally just generate a certain kind of player towards him, and I think he's going to start to get the best defenses or the best defensive players in the Canada West, and he may come out to Ontario as well and do some recruiting there as well. Because the one thing that you can say for him, it's strange that he had so much kind of conflicting. Conflict, we'll just say, between the players and himself, because he is an unbelievable recruiter. So half the defense that was there between, your Steven Ventrescas, your Nick Shorthills, Aram Ishio, Ryan Chmielewski, all of these guys who are unbelievable defensive players came because of Knox. And he put together championship defenses and 2011, 2012, 2014 Yates Cup, and we go to the Vanier all 3 years that he was there. So it's no secret that he is a phenomenal recruiter, and I'm sure he's going to continue that at Alberta.
He had half of Toronto playing for us. Is insane. I remember at practice, you look around our field and like, man, like he just pretty much brought like all of Durham region, Toronto with him. The guy was insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a technique in the way, like he gets Nick Shorthill. Nick Shorthill was a really big name. He's from that King City area out in Toronto kind of thing. And then guys start talking, oh, Shorthill's over here. We need to go over here. Or it's the same kind of thing in Burlington with Chris Pizzetta. Pizzetta goes to McMaster. Oh, Pizzetta went there. We need to go there because that's going to be a good team. You know what I mean? Like, starts to create a buzz.
I 100% agree with that, because actually I remember when Nick Shorthill was getting recruited, people said he actually went to one of Nick's games Knox very rarely goes to anyone's
Yeah.
games, but he knew if I get this one guy to come, word of mouth's going to get around, more people are going to come. So you know what? That's just called working smart, not hard.
Yeah. Yeah, but he was obviously he put together phenomenal teams, and it's really shown through how well we've been doing, and he's going to continue doing that at Alberta, and it's just going to continue that state of excellence. Although somebody needs to take the bullet and just go out east and try to help them out, because it seems like they're getting worse and worse every year.
I know, man. It's really bad there. Honestly, I remember I was reading some debates about if changing the whole playoff format and the CIS to, we just have a national playoff, and they were saying we're not going to include the East Coast. The AUS, maybe like we'll treat them like Notre Dame they do in the NCAA. Like if they're ranked so high they get it, and it's like this is getting bad.
Yeah.
They need to get some help out there.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who don't know, I think the past 2 or 3 years in the championships, so everyone who wins their conference, then those 4 conferences, the 2 teams will play off against each other, and whoever the 2 teams come out that win play in the national championship. But the past 3 years, any team that's gone out to play against the AUS has won like 78-0.
It's been pretty ugly.
Yeah, and it's not even because they're running up the clock. Like in a offensive game or in the CFL where you only have 3 downs, obviously it's going to be a huge pass-heavy offense because you need to move the ball, you need to move it quickly. Western, I don't think in the second half passed the football once, and they still put up like 40 points. It's just like there needs to be an entire revamp on everything that goes on out in Halifax, because either the players that they're getting out there are just not the same kind of caliber that they are in everywhere else, or the coaches aren't doing a good enough job to make sure that they're getting the best possible players. You know what I mean?
I think, too, it ties back into a lot of, like, money issues.
Sure.
Because, I mean, when you look at Mount Allison, I mean, I remember when we were playing them our year in 2014, we were just watching them on film. We saw the field they played on. It honestly looked like a high school field.
Oh, yeah.
So to get players to come, I mean, like, Mac, Western, all the teams out in Ontario can go, look at our facilities. I mean, touched on Guelph, like, look at our jerseys, all this stuff. At Mount Allison, it was like, oh, look at this this hill, look at this like flip scoreboard. Like it's really tough, but for what they had, they did really well the years we were there. So kudos to Mount A for doing great with what they had.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, once again, that goes back to the coaches. I think the coaches are a huge influence into how they're going to get players and which players they're going to get. Because I remember at Mount Allison, they had a defensive tackle from Hamilton who was like an all-star. He was an all-Canadian, pretty sure, out there. And he left Hamilton area with McMaster. At the time, we were obviously coming up in the world, but 2011, 2012, when he would have got recruited, we were the national champions or the repeat Yates Cup champions. So he decided to leave here and go out there. So, they did something right. And I know back in the day, they had a big recruiting ploy, because from like 2000 to 2004, St. Mary's was the ones in the Vanier Cup, and they won 2 or 3 of them because they could give athletic scholarships where Ontario couldn't. And that's how they, really pipe players out there. And so if you have to give them some kind of an advantage like that, then maybe you do that so that you can kind of even the playing field, because now it's just like 3 conferences that are battling it out, and whoever gets the AUS is like an automatic bid to the Vanier Cup.
I know 100%. I remember even talking to guys around McMaster in 2011 when they won the Vanier Cup. They said, if we played the AUS in the if we didn't play the AUS in the semifinal that year, we might have not been successful. Like we had to go to Calgary, play in the snow, take a beating, and then have to go play Laval. The result might have not been the same. Laval was probably a little bit worn down from their semifinal against the Canada West because they started that Vanier Cup really slow. So the result might have been different.
Yeah, absolutely. But, the crazy thing is as well, in that 2011 year, because I remember because that was my first year, going into the rankings, we were ranked number 4. And Acadia was ranked higher than us. They were actually expected to beat us.
Really?
Yeah. Which is certainly the last time that ever happened.
Yeah, that was done.
But that's just about all the time that we have for this edition of the show. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Thanks again to Will Finch, who called in on the show. Next week, we'll be doing the same kind of thing. So please tune in to 93.3 CFMU. We appreciate everything. Maddie, you got anything else to say?
No, I'm good. Thanks for tuning in. And thank you, Will Finch. finchperformance.ca. Everyone, look him up.
Yeah, absolutely. That kid's going places. And if you want your players to go with them, I highly suggest you check that out. Thanks once again, and tune in next week.